Currently, everyone is on mute. We do value group participation, so we ask that if you have any questions, please type them into the question box located on your webinar taskbar. Your questions will be addressed by your coach throughout your webinar. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs in general, please email us at fasttrack, FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me, Deana. Watson, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hey, you guys, happy Thursday. I almost said Tuesday. I have a sick kid at home, so it's all dog years this week to me. So thank you all for joining me on a wonderful Thursday afternoon from wherever you are. Today, we're going to go over quite a few things. And I know that in a 30 to 45 minute webinar, things might seem like they're moving kind of quick. So if at any point you do have a question about the content of the actual thing today from the webinar, you can email me at deanawatson@kw.com, which Deana is D-E-A-N-A. Watson is spelled just like you think it should be. And you can email the questions about the content to me. If you have questions about the program itself, you can also email that to me after the fact. And you can also find me on Facebook and ask me whatever questions you guys have. So we're going to get started today, and I'm going to give you a tiny bit of an intro to me, just so you know who I am and why I'm up here talking about this. I do currently still run a team. I'm still in production, just like you guys are out there listing homes, selling homes, just like you all. I'm also the wife of a Green Beret. And if you are looking at my screen, you could probably see the flag back here, and it would make you realize now why I have a flag hanging on my wall. Something that I'm super proud of, because we take things seriously around here. So my husband obviously took his career seriously and decided to do something kind of hard, and I'm proud of him for it. The other reason that I'm here, and one of the biggest reasons for this webinar and for the class that I teach around this, is I actually have started my business over in 3 separate states, 3 separate times in the last probably 6 years at this point. Because we are in the military, I have used Facebook and organically growing my Facebook page to allow me to have a place to launch my business over and over and over and over again. And one of the things that I am the most proud of, you'll have a lot of people teach classes and they'll show you how to spend your money and how to generate leads and how to follow up with hundreds of leads at a time and all of that. And I'll tell you, that's not my jam. So one thing that I am very proud of is that through $0 spent, that I've been able personally to generate over 50 organic sales in one single year in a new market where I didn't know a single person. And I say that because I want you guys to understand that you can too, and you don't actually have to spend money to do this. You do have to spend your time to do it, but you don't have to spend your money. So I know a lot of people come to these webinars looking for some fresh new ideas or something they can chase that's shiny and spend their money on. And that's not what you're going to find here today. So if that's why you're here, I'm sorry. We're going to talk more about how to organically grow a brand and a business using social media as a tool. Lastly, I am a MAPS mastery coach. I do coach people one-on-one with this. And I have a little boy who's 4 and ironically sick this week. So I'm at home today helping him deal with that. So if you guys have any questions about this after the fact, please let me know. And you can find me through social media on Facebook. And this is what it would look like if you were to come across my social media profile. If you want to screenshot that so you know you're talking to the right person. There is another one floating out there that is not me. It is not mine. And that's why I put this up here so you know you're getting to the right person. It should basically look very similar. The picture's a little bit different at this point, but it's very similar to that. So today we're going to go over a few separate steps in the process to build your brand organically and pull business organically through social media. Like he said at the beginning, if you guys have a question, because I know this is going to move kind of quick, being that it's only a webinar, please pop them in the chat box. And as soon as we're done, I'll take myself off the screen and we'll share and I'll answer whatever questions you have. But step 1 to this whole process really is the branding step. And some people look at branding like it's this super sexy thing and I get to put my name on everything and I'm going to wear a t-shirt and I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'm here to tell you that that is part of it. Part of it is identifying who you want to be portrayed as and having a logo. And now, heck, we can even put it on masks, right? Like one more thing we can put our logo on. But the other part of it isn't about that. It's more going to be about the colors and some of the other things. So before we really get into that, I want to make sure that you know the 5 goals I have for you today. Number 1 is not only to tell you how urgent it is that you find a brand, but also why it matters. I want to explain why all of it working together matters instead of having it pieced together. Second, I want to understand I want you to understand how you do it behind the why you need to do it. Then we're going to shift gears a little bit and give you 5 particular ad concepts that work on Facebook. And if you don't actually want to place ads, because this is a class about organic growth, these are 5 concepts you can do when you post on Facebook every single week that will work just the same. Then I'm going to give you some actionable daily tasks that will help you grow your business and grow your people on your friends list on social media that doesn't feel yucky. Okay. So number 1, we're going to scoot back into the brand category, and I'm going to go over the components. There's 6 of them for someone to have an actual brand, a great brand, a noticeable brand, not just something that people kind of know if they know you. Number 1 is obviously the identifiable logo. And I'm holding up this mask if you can see it, because this is ours, and I'll show it to you more in a minute. This is something that no matter what, people can see over and over and over again, and they will associate that over time with you. The next are the colors. What are the colors that the brand is choosing or the business is choosing? And sometimes there's actually what is called the psychology of color that goes into brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Hardee's, Bojangles, all these fast food restaurants, Taco Bell. There's a psychology behind why they're choosing certain colors for their brand. And we'll skim that right now. But if you really want to geek out on branding, I would really highly encourage you to Google the psychology of color and start reading about how certain colors speak to your subconscious and allow people to think certain things when they see a certain color. It's really kind of fun. Next, every single brand that you would consider a great, magnificent brand, Disney is one of them, has a completely clear brand promise. So what that means is, what is it that you are promising the consumers of your product? And you guys, you are the product here, not the houses you sell. When someone works with you, what is the promise that your company is making to them? Now I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to actually ask you to write this down, except for the young lady I see driving. Please don't write this down. But for those of you who are sitting in front of a desk, I want you to get something out of this class today, not just to listen to a webinar. So I want you to write down, what is it that your brand, and your brand is you, by the way, promises consumers or people who encounter it, not just people who work with you, people that you come into contact with that never become clients, people who see what you're doing on social media that never interact with you. What's the promise that your brand delivers? And if you don't have one, that's okay. Write down that this is something that you should look into doing for yourself. I'm going to give you a second to write this down. What's the brand promise that you have for your particular company? And Steve and Austin, my Facebook and Instagram stuff is always my name. So Deana Watson, Deana_Watson on Instagram. All right, so now the next component of a strong brand is a defined target market. So this is the who you are going towards, not the promise that you're making. Now the promise you're making will promise a certain group of people a certain thing, but I'm going to give you an example on how you need to go a little deeper than you've probably already been thinking. So for those of you who were here at the very beginning, you know my husband's in the military, making me a military spouse. And so it's easy in the community I live in to say that my target market is the military. But you guys, that's everybody. And if you speak to everyone, you actually speak to no one. I'm going to say it again. If you're trying to speak to everyone, you actually resonate with no one. And so for me, my target market, and this took a lot of work. I didn't just wake up one day and know this stuff, just so everyone's not having comparison trap right now. I thought for a long time my target market was the military, and it's not. It is, but it's not. My target market is actually special forces or special operations people within the military. Why? Because that's who I am. That's who my family is. That's who my people are. We are special operations, military veterans, spouses, and active duty members. Now, I could actually take it a step further than that the more I thought about it. And honestly, this part came about a year after what I just said. So it took me a year to have a moment of a light bulb going off to say, wait a minute, that's not actually it either. What I realized was that the people that were interacting with me were the special ops spouses, mostly the wives. Okay, so my target market is not the military, it's not the special operations community, it's their spouses. Because I know, for me, if I can speak to them, they are the ones usually making and driving the decisions when moves are happening because their husbands or their spouses are working up until the time that they move, and it's left on the military spouse to move the household. And because I know that, and I don't know what conversation I was in, but suddenly I woke up and said, man, my market is not even the military. It's the military wife. It's the military spouse. Most of the times, you guys, in special operations, it is the wife. That's just the way that it is with these guys. So that is the fourth one, is an actual defined target market that is niched down enough that someone you are speaking to knows that you're talking to them. Because if I said I work with VA loans in the military, I don't look any different than anybody else. But if we support special operations golf tournaments and we start showing up at golf tournaments for Green Beret Foundation and things like that, we become noticeable and we become different. And that's what we have decided to do. Now, the next one is design consistency. You guys, the one violation, if a real estate agent could be arrested for anything that didn't actually have to do with selling a home, it is literally running the stoplight of design consistency and speeding past it every single time. And I'm not wanting to make a joke here, but what I see oftentimes is you guys are wearing a shirt that's 5 years old where you didn't have a brand at all, and your email logo is different than the business card you hand somebody, and all of that's different than the sign that's in front of the yard. Now, if you're doing that, what you are unconsciously doing is competing with yourself with all of those different brands. Every single one of those things is competing with the other. And when you can finally get design consistency across everything, you finally become recognizable for people, okay? The last thing that a brand that is a strong brand has, the number 6, is a clear written strategy on how you're going to reach your target market. So you know who you're speaking to, you know what you're promising them, and now you need to know how are you going to get your message in their hands. Okay, so I wanted you to look at this because a lot of us don't have all 6 of these until we get purposeful with it. But your ability to have all 6 of these will allow you to have organic growth where people come to you on social media because you're recognizable amongst the thousands of other people who are jockeying for their time. Taking it simply, branding is just promoting a product or service by means of advertising it. So you can have all 6 of those components, but if you don't actually take it to the market, you don't really have anything. Okay, so make sure that you don't just have a really cool thing that you've got on a face mask or on your shirt, that you have a way that other people actually receive that information. It's more than just your logos and your store and your colors and all of the other things. The last component to branding that really hits home on social is how do you actually tell the story of your brand? Now, you guys, in this example, you are the brand. Even if you are on a team, you still have your own personal brand inside of your team, okay? If you are the rainmaker, your people are telling the story of your brand, whether you know it or not, okay? So the last part here is what's the actual story that needs to be told about you, about your team, about what you offer, about what you don't. I'm going to give you 2 references that I want you to check into. And for sake of time, I'm not going to dig into them today, but I would hope if you're interested enough in this, that you'll go look into it. Number 1 is the Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. It's a book that Donald Miller wrote a while ago that talks about how to build a brand through telling a proper story. And he actually goes into breaking down the components of a story and the fact that there's somebody who has a problem, a guide shows up and gives them a plan that gives them a solution, and they end up either succeeding or failing. And that's oversimplifying it. But what he talks about is how do you actually tell the story of yourself and of what you offer in a way that even Hollywood uses to create movies and actually allow people to understand where they stand with you and what you're asking them to do. The second thing, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background to before I tell you what it is. I have a coach just like I am a coach. And for a long time, I was frustrated because I was getting people on my team that were kind of lost. They didn't know what they wanted. They were pretty unclear. And this, if you have a team, you probably resonate with this too. They didn't do the work. They showed up and they didn't have the grit or stamina to deal with what we had going on. And I asked her, I'm like, please help me. Like, I am really doing something wrong here. And she said, you're attracting lost souls because you are a lost soul. And I'm like, dang it, that sucks. And she said, more than that, you're writing ad copy for your hiring ads, offering lost people a tribe to plug into. So you're getting what you're asking for. You have to change what you're asking for. And so she and my admins coach offered up a resource that I actually studied for a few weeks to figure out how we could create our job ads through branding to match the end result we wanted. And it was called the Shackleton ad, kind of like you would have shackles on your hands. It's called the Shackleton ad. And the Shackleton ad basically takes the traditional way of putting out a job ad and flips it on its head. And instead of promising rainbows and unicorns, it talks about how really hard and difficult the job is going to be. And that if you get through this, there will be glory at the end. Instead of the glory at the beginning where lost people want help, it was these people know exactly what they want. They can do it on their own. They're willing to pull in and do the grit and do the work. And through that, you'll have success in the team. So both of those are examples of branding and how the message that you are doing to tell the story of what you're looking for either gets you what you want or it gets you something you didn't know you were asking for. So make sure that you look up those two things. But branding, basically the last piece that I think is important. You guys, social media is a really busy place, like busier than it ever has been. And if you are only posting as you and you're not posting as something that is recognizable and identifiable, and just to give you some of the human psychology, people will recognize colors and shapes before they'll recognize your name. That is not something you can change. That's actually ingrained in us. We're used to seeing certain things and seeing either, warning or go, red light or green light. We don't need the story behind it. So the more you can brand yourself, you're going to allow that constant all the time logo and color to solidify in someone else's mind that, oh yeah, I remember them. Oh yeah, I remember them. It's kind of like that NAR ad that, only 14% of people or whatever the number is will work with you again over time. It's not because they didn't like you. Honestly, you guys, they don't remember your name. They don't remember how they found you. In between the time they met you and the time they're looking for you again, they've met thousands of people. But if you give them something that they're like, oh, that looks familiar. Why does that look? Oh my gosh, that's my realtor. Like they just popped up on my Facebook page. The last reason I want to basically beg you to figure this out is because you guys put in a lot of work and probably would imagine that more people would use you if they remembered that they saw you somewhere before. And through branding and having a really identifiable logo and everything being consistent, it allows for that. So step 2, we're going to define this. We're going to figure out what specifically are you talking, or who specifically are you talking to? Because in order to deliver an effective story or an effective message, you actually have to know who you want to receive it. It's more than just, I'm going to talk about all these things and hope somebody comes my way. Have any of you ever been in church or in a seminar or a webinar or something and you're like looking around, you're like, am I the only person in here? Because I feel like they're talking to me. Does that only happen to me or does that happen to anybody else? Raise your hand if that happens to you. I can see you guys, by the way. It happens to me a lot where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did somebody tell them who was talking to this guy? Because I think y'all told on me before I got here. That's the point. The point is when someone feels like you are talking to them and they are the only person that you made that message for, they hear it, they internalize it, they understand it, and normally they're compelled to act on it because it resonates with them in here. So think about your audience, and if you haven't written this down yet somewhere, either right now or as soon as we get off this call, write down who your audience actually is. If you don't know who it is, you can go on the example I gave earlier, or you could have a couple other starting points. How old are they? What are their interests? What are their socioeconomic status? And I know you guys, I've heard somebody before in this class say, I'll work with anybody who wants to buy a house. I understand that, and we do too. But what I mean is the more you can work with people who you want to work with, the harder your job is not. It's easier to work with people who you think are your people. They're your type of folks. You like them. They like you. There's less problems. So I'm not saying in asking this question, who do you not want to work with? I'm saying, who do you want to work with so that when you ask for that, the universe gives it back to you. The last thing, where do they work? If you're in LA and you want to work with busy professionals, maybe they actually live in New York City and they commute back and forth. If you want to work with people in the military, those people don't actually live here yet when they start looking for homes. They live in other places, which might lead into a referral network or something other than that. But these are some ideas to get you started. How old are they? What are they interested in? And of course, I'll tell you a story about that in a second. How much money do they make and where do they live, or what's the location of their jobs? So years ago, I was actually on a team, not at Keller Williams. This is probably like a decade ago. And the team leader had her daughter in cotillion. And if you don't know what cotillion is, Google it really quickly and you'll understand why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And I asked her, I was like, you're not really the cotillion type. Why is your daughter in cotillion? And she said, you know what I am? I'm the $1 million home type. And guess who has their daughter in cotillion? People who own $1 million homes. And after about 18 months of her daughter being in cotillion, and I'm not even telling you a joke, the average price of the team that I was on went up about $250,000. She went where people were that she wanted to work with. Now, I'm not saying you use your children as a pawn in your business game, but what I am saying is the people who are interested in the same things that own homes you want to sell, you might want to put yourself there. I heard something last week, your network is your net worth. That has not left me in the last 7 days. And that's what she understood, okay? Now, before we go on and we talk about who you're talking to and what you're saying, I'm going to throw a caution sign up there because we all know that, especially now more than ever, we're living in a society where people want a reason to complain about something or to throw you under the bus or whatever else, right? And the other thing, you guys, is that you have to be sensitive to things that people are sensitive to if you want to work with people. I'm not going to sit on this for long, but there are a few things that if you want to build an organically strong brand on social media, you have to be aware that half the people that are seeing it likely don't agree with you because we all have our beliefs one way or the other, right? So some of the things to be careful with, even sharing something somebody else posted could likely land you in a situation where someone sees it and they no longer want to work with you. Now, please understand, this is your Facebook page. Do whatever you want. But what I am saying is if you want to appeal to a mass amount of people, your Facebook page has to be Switzerland. It has to be. You can insert things you believe, and I am not telling you not to believe in something. But what I am saying is if you choose to do that, and it falls in any of these categories, plus a couple more I'm going to mention, being that it is 2021, that you have to understand that people might not agree with you. And if that's okay with you, it's okay with me. Number one is politics. Right now, you guys, we all know that our country is very, very divided on political lines, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So if you are giving the highlight version of Fox or CNN or whatever the other things are, NBC or whatever, you likely got a lot of people who think you're a crackpot. I'm just going to say it because I'm known for saying what other people won't. You can still choose to share those things, but you might want to be a little less or a little more tactful on the things that you're writing in the captions because you're probably ostracizing people and you don't even know it. Next is religion. That's always going to be one. Next is sexual orientation. That's always going to be one, but right now it's a little bit more hot button than normal. Human welfare topics include things from immigration to abortion. We all know this. You have a stance on it and half the people don't agree. You share that you're so pro-life and people who are pro-choice that might have wanted to work with you just don't want to anymore because you don't align on moral grounds. Gun control is one that will always be there. The last two, which we're just going to say it, are racism and your vaccination status. Okay, so I understand we all have our things, but if you're looking to build an empire based on public opinion, which is what social media is, you have to understand that people are looking for a reason to not agree with you. And these are the most common ones. So we're going to move on because this is the most awful slide of this whole thing and everyone kind of checks out when I talk about this, but it's important. The next thing people ask is, what are the best and the worst times to post on social media? First of all, you guys, the best time to post is if you don't already do it and you're looking just to get into this, the best time is whenever you can do it. If you already do it and you're looking to become more purposeful, the actual, this is statistics, not my opinion, the statistical best time to post is weekdays between 1 and 4 p.m. because that's when people are on, clicking on things, likely bored at work because they've been there half a day. The overall peak time throughout the week, don't ask me why, I just did the research and this is what it shared, is Wednesday at 3 p.m. The worst times to post, pretty obvious, are the weekends before 8 and after 8 because people are either out doing what they're going to do or they're asleep. It's the weekends, people sleep then. So if you're looking to get more purposeful with actually having what you post be seen and engaged with, which is the name of the game here, you need to post when people are looking. That's pretty easy to understand. All right, so if you have any questions, just keep posting them in there. We're going to breeze through the rest of this a little faster than the first half. So please make sure you're putting your questions in there. And thank you for those of you who are helping me in the chat box answer the questions. So let's talk about ads for a second. You know your audience, you know your brand. Now let's talk about either ads or posts. You don't have to make an ad with these, but these are common posts that you could turn into ads if you chose to. Each of them is going to serve a different function or purpose, and knowing that will allow you to make sure that you have the right expectation about what you're putting out there. It also is going to let you make sure you're holding your money accountable if you're turning these posts into ads, and hold your time accountable if you're not spending your money. Last, don't just throw things out there and see what sticks, you guys. Have something that you're telling a story that calls people to action, because if you've ever been to Bold, you know the adage, logic makes you think, emotion makes you act. That's why all of us love the Super Bowl commercials, because it plays on emotions of either being funny or being sad. We watch these commercials all year long, but the most emotional commercials in the whole year happen during the Super Bowl. That's why they cost the most people are watching, and the most people act after seeing them. It's all because emotion makes you act. So Facebook post or Facebook ad type 1 is the sale ad. This is something you guys are already likely good at. Just listed, just sold. The one thing I'll tell you is to stop posting about the house and start posting about the family or the person who bought it. That is the emotional side. The logical side is, I just sold a house. And once again, I'm known for saying things people probably think I shouldn't. No one cares anymore that we sold a house. People care that we impacted a life and helped a family. Okay? I hope I didn't offend any of you in saying that, but it's the truth. Every single person who's in real estate right now is talking about how much more they got over asking price and for how much less they spent on the market. One day on market, 82 offers, $100,000 over asking. But what the consumer hears when you post that is that you're overpaid and you didn't do a whole lot of work and you don't know how to adequately price a home. We know that's not true. That's what they hear. And on Facebook, perception is their reality, right? So if you're posting about how you've impacted a family's life or the struggle that family had to go through to be able to buy a home, or, you know, years ago, and of course, you always ask permission to share personal things, but the one that I've seen recently that made even hit me in the feels, here was a woman talking about how this single mom went bankrupt 4 years ago when she got divorced. And for the last 4 years, she's been in credit repairs, like clawing tooth and nail to be able to purchase a home. And her kid has been asking her to buy a puppy, but without a yard, she didn't want to buy a puppy. And long story short, the post that this realtor made was about the dog having a yard to live in and had nothing to do with the house that was sold. But you know who else that hit in the feels? Everybody else who's ever gone through a divorce. Everybody else who's ever had to tell their kid no. You know who it didn't hit in the feels? Everybody who cared about selling a house, which was pretty much no one. Okay. The goal here is to get people to see your proof of production. What are you actually doing in the real estate industry? Because it's easy to say that we're realtors, but it's not as easy to prove what we're doing here. If you want to consider something, take a screenshot of this. And this is kind of the beginning of the narrative of what I was referring to. Having a story about a family and who you're impacting versus having a story about a house you sold, because nobody really cares about that side anymore. Next, the CMA ad. If you'd like to know what your home is worth, click this button and it'll take you to this page. That's basically what it is. The goal here, though, you guys, is a little different than what I hear people I even coach ask. Most people say, well, all the leads were junk and nobody actually wanted to list. But what you're missing is the fact that the goal here is to build a pipeline. The goal here is to have a set of people who have raised their hand and wanted to know what they could get for if they sold, that when you have a buyer that can't find inventory, you have a list of people who you've already spoken to that you know would sell if they got the right price. You now have a buyer and you have an off-market seller if you're allowed to do that. Some states you can't. But if you're allowed to do that, the goal of the CMA ad is not to list a home right now. There are two goals of a CMA ad is to build your bench of people who would sell and to get a pipeline of people who will sell in the future. I'm going to give you one other thing to consider here. Imagine if you did a CMA ad and you got 10 people a week who wanted to know the valuation of their home. And instead of just sending it to them, you did a quick Calendly link, which allows people to schedule on your schedule. And you set that up to where you did quick 10-minute valuation meetings every single week. Let's say you got 4 people who were willing out of the 10 to commit to a Zoom with you. No hassle, no contract here. We're just talking about your home for 10 minutes. You can hang up on me if you don't like what I have to say. Let's say 4 people agreed to that. That's 16 people a month. Let's say eventually you actually listed half of those. Somebody do the math for me. You got 16 people a month times 12 months in a year. And I'm going to do it here just so I make sure I'm not off. And let's say, we won't even say half. Let's say 25% of those people listed with you. So you've got 12 months, you got 16 people. That's 192 total Zooms. Everybody on the same page here? If 20% of those people actually listed, you've just landed yourself 38 listings for 2022. 10 minutes at a time, 4 times a week. That's 40 minutes for 38 listings. Anybody willing to make that trade? I know I am. And all you got to do is make it seem in the ad like it's no commitment. I just want to talk to you and present this to you and tell you what you can get for your home. If you use me, great. If you don't, great. Even if you snagged 20% of those and you failed 80% of the time, you still took 40 listings. Okay. Everybody on the same page with why that would be impactful. I know I am. The next one is the FOMO ad. This is where you're going to talk about the human need to be in the know about things. This is where you're going to give teasers and you're going to pull back a little bit. Tell the story of a client that has purchased a home successfully in a way that creates the need for other people to want to have what they have. Always allow people to see that they can do it too. And these kind of ads would be great in video. So for example, the biggest FOMO thing right now is getting a deal, because honestly, in a lot of markets, getting a deal just means you snagged a house because there's a lot of places that you can't really buy right now if you don't have a lot of money. So think about things that you could do. Now, this is going to be different for everybody. But think about things that you could do that you could create an ad around or a story around that would make other people want what you told that story about. This is going to be different for everyone. Okay, so I'm not going to give tons of examples. It would take too long. But that's basically the type 3. Type number 4, the review ad. We all get those reviews from Zillow. We all get them from Facebook. And I see most of people that I watch on social, they'll just screenshot the Zillow review. Don't do that. Take the actual words, copy them, and paste them into a graphic with your colors, your logo, your ad copy, your font, all that stuff. The goal here is to showcase your customer service to people who haven't yet worked with you. It also is going to allow you to bring some sort of a human element where other people are bragging on how great you are. Every single time you get a review, you should be posting it on your Facebook page and thanking the people involved in getting that transaction to the closing table. I'll tell you, I will say the most social equity I have ever gotten with another human being in the business is thanking the co-op agent for allowing such a smooth transaction that I got this great review. Okay, you're allowing other people to see that you're not the shark eat shark kind of real estate agent. You know that you're not the only one who did that. And it's something where it allows you to have some sort of, deposit in the emotional bank account of other people to show that you actually do care about everybody involved. Every single review you get, you should pop that into a design space like Canva or in Command and Designs there, and make an ad or make a post about the review and thank people. People are always more likely to go off the recommendations of people they know or other folks than they are to jump in first themselves based on someone else's opinion of themselves. So make sure that you're doing this on a consistent basis. Number 5, the most recent one, is the COVID ad. I know this feels weird or sounds weird, but there are still, you guys, a lot of people who will not like go into public. I know that at this point, a lot of us are kind of over it and we're doing things that we don't know if we should or shouldn't do, and we're just doing them anyway. There are a lot of people who are still really hesitant about this. And if you had something that made them feel better about the fact they could purchase completely virtually, they could have a mobile notary that came to them that had been COVID tested, all these things, you let people know that it's still safe to come out and buy a house with you. No one else is talking about it. The other reason that this is a good ad is honestly because of the SEO world. When you Google something and you're searching for something, it's going to continue this cycle of things populating for you. So if we know that majority of the people in this country at some point throughout the week are Googling something to do with COVID, and you have ads or blogs about your COVID strategy, you're going to show up right next to the vaccination sites that people are finding. You're basically using what's going on in the world to your advantage in a blogosphere, if you want to call it that, or a social media sphere, to make sure that you show up right next to the thing they were actually looking for, because you're using the buzzword that everybody else is looking at. Okay. Also, allowing yourself to use hashtags lets other people find you. We all know that by now. I'm not going to go into that. But you can also share reviews of people who you've helped during the pandemic who were concerned with virtual stuff, and you helped them through it, and you can with other people too. All right, so before I go into the program that we have, you can take after this if you want to, I am going to answer the question that Michelle had put in here. How do you approach clients about sharing their story on social media? Do you write it out and ask for their permission to post? So 2 things. If they share it in a review, they know that that review is going to be public. And what we put in an email when we go to closing, if they haven't already reviewed us, at the bottom of it, it says, we would love to know what you think so we can share this with other people. Please leave us a review. If they leave a review, they've read that we're going to share it. It was right there. And then you have the ability to share it. If you're asking about things that you want to share just in general, that they did not write a review with it in there, I would just ask them and say, hey, I want to help more people who are like you. Would you mind if I shared the pertinent parts of your story? And if you're sensitive about some stuff, I can leave it out. That's totally okay. I would make sure though, for liability purpose, you guys have that in writing. Don't make it weird. You can send them an email after the fact that elicits them to respond that says, you know, I enjoyed working with you guys so much. Just so we're all on the same page, here's what I'm going to share with others. If you're okay with that, just like what we talked about earlier, just respond and let me know you're fine with it. Most of the time they'll respond, that's your actual express consent. And I'm not an attorney, just to get out of jail free on this one. That's your express consent to be able to share that stuff. So I hope that answers your question. All right, like I said before we go, if you have any other questions, it's deanawatson@kw.com. And if you have questions about the class I'm going to share in a second, I will answer those too. So this is a kind of a really quick snippet of an 8-week program that MAPS has that you guys can take if you want to. It's called 50 Facebook Sales in 50 Weeks. It is an 8-week, all recorded. If you miss one, you can go back and take it later. It is something that if you come in a week late, you can catch up the week before. It's totally fine. But the topics that we survey range from all the branding stuff we talked about, all the way through how to do video ads properly, all the way to the end about how to analyze the data, and pretty much everything in between. It is catered specifically towards Facebook. So if you have no desire to, well, I guess if you didn't have a desire about Facebook, you might not be here. But if you want to know more about that, the session layout is it's 8 one-hour sessions once a week. There is also a closed Facebook group that you're a part of that you guys can get ideas from everybody else who's ever been in that group. The recordings are available for 2 months after the class is over. So if you have a life event, you need to catch up on them. That's totally fine. The next one we're launching is on the 19th of, I was going to say this month, but today is still September. So the 19th, they are all at 1:30 Eastern time. And the investment for the class is only $198 for the whole 8 weeks. If you have any questions about it, or if you want to just watch the promo video, you can go to mapscoaching.com/group. And that's actually where all group programs for MAPS are housed. So if you didn't know it, if you don't want to be in one-on-one coaching with MAPS, MAPS also offers, I think there's like a dozen programs on specific topics where it's an 8-week class. You learn about the topic you care about and you move on. Okay. If you go to the mapscoaching.com/groups, it's actually called 50 Facebook Sales in 50 Weeks. And I would love to see you there if you want to join me. If you have any other questions, send them to me. I don't see any more in the chat box, but somebody asked about the recording and he posted it on there. We actually also have a YouTube channel for every single one of these type recordings for every topic that we coach on. So if you need some more content and you don't want to invest in the class yet, please, please, please go to the MAPS group coaching. It's called Fast Track, but the Fast Track YouTube channel, and you'll see all of that on there. Thank you guys so much for spending your Thursday afternoon with me, and I will see you later.